Hi everyone, my name's Edwina Yasso. I will be helping today with the presentation. First off, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. Legal Aid Queensland acknowledges and respects the Turrbal and Yagara people as the First Nations custodians of the land we're on and all the places that you may be on. I'd like to acknowledge those traditional owners, and we are here to help. We work to help disadvantaged Queenslanders uphold their legal rights in our justice system. We pay respects to our elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. We recognise that these lands have always been places of ceremony, teaching, researching, and learning. We acknowledge the important role and Torres Strait Islander people play, that Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people play in our communities. Today, I'd like to acknowledge on our screen, we have someone from our Auslan interpreters. Welcome. I also like to acknowledge that today we did indicate that we were going to have live captions. However, that's not available today and will be, though, when we actually put this on our YouTube channel once we've recorded. So first off, we're going to, let's have a look at what we're doing. So as I said, we're doing a presentation around a conversation.
Oh, well, hopefully you're going to join me in the conversation.
I hope so too.
Ask any questions.
Yes, and that's the theme for today. This is really about a conversation. We want to really, Loretta's got a lot of conversation polls that we're going to go through. So really keen to hear from everybody with answering through the polls. So let's go through. So I've already done Loretta.
Well, no, you actually just go back for a moment, okay, because I was looking at the expected attendees to this session just recently, and I thought I should make it clear that whilst this is a conversation and hopefully people will learn a lot, it is important that people have some understanding of how the credit reporting system works, because this is really an extension as to what now can be put onto your credit report in relation to financial hardship information. And I also want to say about credit reporting and the context that I'm speaking it in, it's about consumer credit reports. So these are credit reports that are regulated under Part 3A of the Privacy Act. And I also think it's important that you have at least a basic understanding of repayment history information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all a bit of a test there, and including you, Edwina.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully you can join in too. So I'm going to do that by doing a number of polls. That's so that I can have an understanding of the level of knowledge within the room. Now, I'm not going to call you out if you get it wrong. So Edwina, if you get it wrong, I'm not going to say, Edwina, surely you should know that. And I want it to be a conversation because some of these areas are very, very tricky.
Yeah, so true. No.
We'll start. We'll go onto my screen and we'll talk about me first.
Yes, okay.
Very
exactly.
important.
Very good.
So my name is Loretta Crete. I'm one of the principal lawyers in Civil Justice Services at Legal Aid Queensland. And I have a bit of an interest, a geeky interest in credit reporting. In fact, I've been involved in the policy around this area for over 20 years. Oh. I know I don't look that old, Edwina, but that's the reality of it. All right, let's go.
So this webinar, we actually said before, it's going to be recorded, and the laws and content is accurate on the day of this presentation and may change. The information on it is in our Community Legal Education resource page on the Legal Aid website. If you want to contact if you have any issues with your program right now, you need to go to the webinar customer support for tech help. Okay, I'm going to read the slides because I haven't done a presentation for a while, so I just want to make sure I'm doing everything correct. So there is Oh, it says we're going to talk for 40 minutes and have 20-minute question and
And we
answer.
don't have a handout.
And we don't have handouts. Oh,
We have the presentation.
We have the presentations. There is a few handouts there that we've done that are on the side there that you can actually click. And as we said, we're going to ask questions. So you can answer them by going to the questions part, type it into the questions, or when it comes to the polls will come up for you to respond to. And once you've done that, we will then go on to our next slide. Okay, so for first poll, I'm going to bring up today.
I hope people can answer this question.
Same here. So the first poll I'm going to do is I'm going to launch is, and because we're not going to see ourselves right now, I'm Loretta because the poll is happening. So I'm letting people, I'm collecting responses right now. So the first poll is around, are you of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent or none of the above? I'll just give it a couple of more seconds. Yeah, cool. Excellent. So thank you for that information. It looks like we have a pretty good spread. The next one we have is now, which region do you work in? So I'm going to bring up that poll for you. And I'm going to launch it. And if you can respond to that, thank you. Yes, okay, so that's done. The next one will be...
On that note, while you're looking at the next poll, the one thing that I would say is if you're outside of Queensland, this should relate mostly to nationally because it's federal legislation. If there's any part of it which I think is just relates to Queensland, I will let you know.
Excellent. So the next poll is what is your role? What is your role? Okay. And the next one is what we will learn today. So that's actually not a poll. So what we're going to learn today is what is your financial hardship?
That's all right. What I might just do is if we can just go straight to the polls, okay, and I might come back to that slide.
Okay then, excellent. So let's have a look at the next poll. So which one are we looking at?
Can all credit providers get access to repayment history information?
Okay, so the next poll we're going to put up will be, is there a slide on that so I can get to that?
You should be able to.
There's information content.
That
one there. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to be going in between the slide because we are going to be interactive. So I'm going to launch the next poll so that you can actually answer the question so Loretta can get an indication of where everyone's at.
Oh, I love this. I can already see that there's quite a bit of tension around this question. And we have got already a nice even spread across all the areas. And I think we've got 95%. So let's go back.
Yes, let's go back to the slide.
And yep, go back to the slide. Now, I can tell you that the answer is no. But from somebody who is in the no camp, do they want to have a go at telling the group why it might be a no?
Well, if you can put that in your questions, that'd be great. And so we can see that in the question, if you can answer that there, that'll be great.
Otherwise, it might be a bit too difficult. So yeah, I'll just explain a little bit, and this is one of the things that hopefully you will gain an understanding of, is that repayment history information is only available to those credit providers who also held an Australian credit license. So if you don't have a credit license, you won't be able to get access to repayment history information. And so you might think, well, aren't all credit providers required to hold an Australian credit licence? Well, they don't. So only those people who provide regulated credit. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on.
Well, if I was going to answer that question, I was going to sit on maybe, that's the fence. So I'll be with the 14%.
I like those fence sitters. Okay, we've got to find the next poll. Where is that poll?
Okay,
how late do you?
No problems, how late? Okay, so this one here?
Yes.
Okay, so the next poll we're going to go through, as we said, this is going to be very interactive, is how late do you, and I'm going to launch the poll right now for you.
So how late do payments have to be before they are listed as missed payments on the repayment history information? So before you get a 1 on your credit report saying that you're late, how late do you have to be?
I'm going to go 14 days, personally.
Well, that's
my answer, but you know, I'm not really.
Well, are you going with the majority?
I did not even look at the poll. I was just going, well, 14 days makes sense to me, but that's just me.
All right. Can I tell you the answer, Edwina? Yeah. And I want you to say that this is the Alan Jones amendment, because the industry wanted 0 days. Alan Jones made a big kerfuffle about this, and we got 14 days. Ooh, so we weren't getting any traction, but when Alan Jones took this issue on, we ended up getting 14 days. So that's what it is. All right. So, now, the next question, there's another poll. Will all financial hardship arrangements, so we've gone from repayment history to financial hardship arrangements, with credit providers be listed from 1 July 2022?
Okay, so will all financial arrangement providers are listed on from July?
Oh, I like this again. There is an even spread, Edwina.
Well, because I don't know this one, I was going to sit on the fence as a maybe.
Okay, well,
so
there's quite a few fence sitters there already.
Good, excellent.
20% of you are saying maybe. And we've got 82%, 87%, so let's close that poll.
Yes, cool.
I can tell you it's no. So that's because repayment history, financial hardship information will be included in repayment history information, will sit next to it. So only those people who can list repayment history information can potentially list financial hardship information on credit reports, but it's even narrower because whilst all credit providers who hold a credit license can list repayment history information, only those providers who are lending that the product is a regulated product, they can list financial hardship information. So let me give you an example. The bank, a bank lends money that is not, a bank lends money for buy now, pay later. Right? Buy now, pay later is not regulated. But because the bank holds an Australian credit licence, they can list repayment history information, but they can't list financial hardship information about that buy now, pay later product.
So what if they're not a bank?
So if they're not a bank and they have an Australian credit licence, so if you have a look at, I don't want to mention any names, but some of those other ones, they might have personal loans that are regulated, so they can list. But if they don't, and again, if they have a product that's not regulated by the National Credit Code, they can't list financial hardship information about that product. So if the company only provides buy now, pay later, and they don't have an Australian credit licence, they can't list repayment history information, and they can't list financial hardship information.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Cool. So they can't list both.
Can't list
Cool.
both.
So you want me to go to your next poll?
Yeah, what is the minimum amount that can be listed as missed payments on repayment history? No, that should be on financial hardship information.
Okay, so is it this the poll? Which one is this the one you're talking about? What is the minimum amount?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to find that poll for
No,
you.
no, actually. No, it's all right. It can be repayment history information.
Okay.
That's right.
So I'm going to launch the poll now. So here we go. So I'll give you a few, not long, to respond to this. Once we get to 85 or 89, we'll stop the poll. So what is the minimum amount that can be listed as a payment on the, what was it?
Repayment history information.
Okay.
On your repayment history information.
So I'm going to say any amount if you ask me that question. But remember, I'm not a lawyer or I'm just a Joe Blow.
Edwina, you're right. Excellent. You should join the team. So it's actually unlike default information where there is a minimum amount of $150 for repayment history information. So if you miss your credit card payment, it can be listed. All right, so can we go back now? That's the polls done.
Okay.
So hopefully you've already started to think about your level of knowledge. All right, I will try really hard, but it is quite difficult. So what will you learn today? And I think you can just
skip through this one.
Skip through that one because we're already running suspect a bit late. So I want to give you a basic rundown. Did you close that poll?
Yes, I have, because we can see this.
So I want to give you a rundown of the information contained in your credit report. So besides identifying information, there's information such as how many inquiries you make for credit, any defaults that you have, which are different to repayment history information, court judgments, who has accessed your file, and consumer credit liability information, which is on your screen at the moment. And you'll see that there's 5 types of consumer credit liability information. So that's the loans taken out. Now, those loans could include telco debts or utility debts, the type of loan it is it a home loan, etc. The credit limit that you might have when you start that loan. So if you've got a housing loan and it's for 500,000, it will say 500,000. The type of repayments, so if it's principal and interest or interest only. And the 5th thing is repayment history information. Now, all credit providers who provide consumer credit, which is a wider definition than regulated credit. That's why telcos are included and utilities are included, because they give credit. You're allowed to consume services without having to pay for them. Okay, so that's why they can credit report. They can only report information about the first 4 types. So loans taken out, type of loan, credit limits, and types of payments. But any lender that's got a Australian credit license can list and look at repayment history information. So if you're late with if you're wanting to get a telco account, so a telecommunications account, a mobile phone account, the credit provider, they would be seen as a credit provider, can look at your credit report, see everything on there, except they can't see the repayment history information that's been recorded. So what is this repayment history information? The repayment history information is simply whether or not you have made your payment, has met an obligation to make a monthly payment that is due and payable in relation to the consumer credit. and as long as they make that payment within that 14-day period. Okay. So this is how it might look on your credit report. Now, on some of the other slides, I haven't fixed up the dates. So in this particular case, this person has a credit card with some bank or lender. They have a revolving credit, so you know they keep that credit limit keeps going up, and they are. It looks like they started their account in May of 2021 because that's or April 2021 because that's when you see the first tick. They make their first 2 payments, and then in July of 2021 they miss a payment, so they get a 1. Then they catch up that payment, make them the next month's payment, and keep going until May of 2022 when they have a bit of more of a blip, and they're again late on their payments. So they have a 1 in May, they're 2 payments late in June. Okay. In July they make 2 payments, but there's still 1 payment down because they make the July payment and they catch up on one of their other payments. And in August they make all of the payment and the 1 late payment that they still had. And the P stands for that the payment, they're waiting for the payment to come in. So that's why there hasn't been any, that's just to show that, you know, they don't have any record of it as yet.
So is the 1 the 14 days?
Yes, they were late by 14 days. Okay. So when they're in June, they're then late 2 payments.
Yes, so that late,
Yeah, so both payments are late. Okay, so do we have any questions yet?
Yes, can buy now, pay later providers report to your credit report?
Yes, they can. So all buy now, pay later can report to your credit report. And when if you wanted to go back again, Edwina.
To the other slide, yes.
Yeah.
This one?
No, back one more. Oh, hold on, where is? So to this slide, they can report against those first 4 types of information. However, if the lender, so if a bank is providing buy now, pay later, they can also report repayment history information.
Oh, okay.
If they're not a bank or don't hold a credit license, they can't put that information in.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so
all
we'll
right.
to now. I'm going to catch up to us. This one?
Yes. I think you can just read that in a sense. So from July 2022, if you make a financial hardship arrangement with your lender, noting that the lender has to both have a credit license and the loan has to be regulated by the National Credit Code, and you want a hardship arrangement, that's when they will place an indicator next to your credit report. Oh, okay. It's not retrospective. What that means is if you're in a current arrangement, it's not going to be changed. But if you then go back to the lender and say, I need a further period, it's going to come onto your credit report.
So if you have one already before the 1st of July, it won't change. However, if you then amend that, it will then start changing from after the 1st of July. It'll be then on your credit report.
Yes. Well, there is some questions about that, Edwina, like always. Not everybody has to list. So all I'm saying is those people who, there are some lenders that do have to list, the big banks. Okay. And then it's really a choice from some of those other lenders whether they list or not. Okay, so always think about it. That's why it's a bit tricky. Can you see how tricky it is? Yes. And that's why I often suggest people go and get legal advice about it as well, because if you've got anything on your credit report or you see anything from your clients on their credit report and you don't know, it's a really good idea to get some advice. In Queensland, I'm quite happy to speak to financial counsellors and community workers directly, but clients should book in for advice.
No problem.
So there's 2 types. Oh yes, we'll skip that. So what is a financial hardship arrangement? And I've taken it straight from the legislation because it actually explains it. So the credit provider is providing consumer credit to an individual, so not a company. The National Credit Code applies to the provision of credit, and the individual can't make the payments for the month in advance. And they then go and ask for a financial hardship arrangement from their lender. It doesn't matter. All right. No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, because we can talk about that later. Just keep an eye on questions if there's. Oh no, no questions.
No questions.
Please ask me questions. I like answering questions. It makes it much easier actually for me to explain things, because sometimes this can be quite sterile, the way in which these sorts of these webinars run.
So you want the webinar to be more fluid with questions rather than static based on presentation.
Exactly. Luckily, I've got you here, Edwina, keeping me company. So let's see. Well, there's two types of hardship indicators that can be on your credit report. One is an A, which is really a temporary relief from payments. That means the underlying contract still goes along, and I'll show it by a slide in a moment. So it's not that the credit provider has changed the terms of the agreement. The underlying terms, you'll still have an obligation, but there's an A. But then there's also a V variation, which generally follows an A, temporary, which means that there's a permanent change to your credit contract. And it's best explained again by having a look at an actual credit report. So let's go to the next slide.
Let's go to the next slide. And while we're at it, I do see a question there.
Utility providers report their FHI. I would really like to see that, because that's not what they're allowed to under the legislation. So if you can show me any credit report that actually shows that there is FHA on the credit report, the utility report, please let me have a look at it, because you can see from the legislation you can only list if the National Credit Code applies. So unless the National Credit Code applies, you can't list FHI on a credit report. Now you might have it in companies may have it in their internal systems, but in terms of the credit reporting system, they cannot list those. This is a common misconception. It's a common misconception as to who can list repayment history information, and it's going to be a common misconception as to who can report financial hardship arrangements. The reason why utilities and telcos and other lenders cannot list repayment history information and also FHA was the only reason that lenders were able to list repayment history information is if they have legislative responsible lending provisions, and only regulated credit under the National Consumer Credit Code has that.
So the next question is there for you.
What if an unregulated debt is referred to a debt collector? Can they still list? Not RHI and not FHA. And if it's a regulated debt, if it's a regulated debt, it's been closed off by the credit provider and sold. That probably, I'll go through that slide later on because it's a bit more complex, but in those circumstances, it's probable that they can't list any financial hardship arrangement either. So I'm happy to go and take that on board. So, we've gone to the slide. So I've got to actually have a look at that. If we can move our lovely faces from the screen up here. So this person forget about those dates on the side, because honestly, it's only coming in 2022. So this person, if financial hardship reporting had been in for the last 2 years, then this person again entered a contract in May of, let's say, 2022 rather than 19. They had their first blip in July of that year where they missed a payment. And then what happened in 2023 instead of 2020, in May, they knew that they weren't going to be able to make their payments. And so what they did was they rang up their credit provider and said, I can't make payments for the next 3 months. All right. I need to, or no, next 5 months, let's say, I need to have a temporary arrangement. You will see that it says nothing about what the payments are, and this person can have an arrangement where they pay nothing but are seen as ticks on their credit report. So then they come in September and ask the credit provider, can I have a permanent variation of this contract and add all those arrears to the end of my contract, because I've now got a job, all right? Can make all the payments, but I just want all the arrears added to the end. That then is a permanent arrangement. It's a V, and the new payments, the new ticks are against that new arrangement that's been made. Look, before I go on, because I just wanted to say I really am very grateful to the Financial Rights Legal Centre in New South Wales, because that's where I stole all these examples from. They know that I've stolen them, but I just thought I should acknowledge them. Yes. So what is an A? So an A is, it gets recorded every month the arrangement is in place. It's against the arrangement, not the original contract, but arrears are building up underneath. So you have to deal with something with the arrears, and it stays on there for 12 months. These are only for the first month arrangement is in place, and reporting against the varied contract, and will permanently deal with the contract varied. It's a fresh start, okay? And again, it's only on there for 12 months, and then it starts to drop off. So I just want you to, these are things that you should really remember. Yes? No. Are you looking for something?
No, I'm just making sure.
These are the other things to remember. Without repayment history information, if you can't record repayment history information, you can't record financial hardship information. If an account is closed and there is no repayment history information, then again, there's no financial hardship information. So no, you can't. So if there's a debt collection arrangement, they've sent it off, then there won't be any financial hardship information. Mandatory credit reporting is in place for the 4 major banks plus Macquarie, and by September 20, well, they had until September 2022 for all of their reporting to be made, but they're the only ones that have mandatory reporting. So if you have a loan with a smaller bank and you go to your credit report and you say, why isn't this information on there? Why isn't there any information about this loan? That's because they don't have to mandatorily comply under legislation. Now, sometimes they might have to comply because they have a contract or an arrangement with the credit reporting body, because remember, these bodies are private companies as such, but they don't have to do it under legislation. Only the 4 major banks in Macquarie. A lender is not allowed to.
Sorry,
yeah, no, that's all right. So we want to go, no, you want to go mandatory or not, because this is just more. A lender is not allowed to use financial hardship information as the sole basis for closing a credit card or reducing its limit. However, that's not to say that if others get access to it who don't, if it doesn't relate to a credit card, for example, if you have a commercial credit and they find out that you've got a hardship arrangement, it could be a contractual term in those agreements that they will use it. So you have to be careful that the limitation is actually quite narrow. It only relates to credit cards and it only relates to closing a credit card account or reducing the limit. Now, financial hardship information cannot be used in the calculation of credit reporting credit scores. That's a big mouthful. Yes. People love their credit scores now. You will have heard, you know, what's my credit score? Yes. Do you know what yours is, Edwina?
Yes.
Maybe we shouldn't disclose.
Well, no, I don't even know what the number means. So I've had the number, but
yeah, don't tell it. Don't tell anyone. But people place a lot of importance on their scores. The issue, though, is that the one is it's only a credit reporting credit body score. It doesn't necessarily mean that lenders see the bank might have their own internal score of how good a prospect you are, and you might be much higher or much lower with them, and they could take that into consideration. And of course, lenders, when they actually decide whether they're going to give you credit, they don't look at your score, they actually look at the underlying credit report. So it's people have this false sense of security thinking their credit score is quite high, and that this won't affect whether they get a loan or not. That's not the case.
So the score doesn't affect, it's the credit line.
Well, it's the score doesn't necessarily is not the basis on which a lender decides whether they'll give you a loan or not. They will look at the underlying information on which that credit score is based.
No problem. Okay.
All right. So what about the treatment of, I'm going to go through all of these things. Treatment of arrears, waivers, backdating of financial hardship, missed payments, and impact of domestic violence. So hopefully you're interested in that as an audience.
Well, I am.
Well, oh good, Edwin, at least somebody is. So let's go and have a look at another one of these example credit reporting RHI and FHI. And again, the Financial Rights Legal Centre, I'm very grateful for them. So in this particular case, Robert has got a loan, and in July he made his payment. Then in, January. Yes. Then in February he missed a payment, and in March he was already 2 payments behind. He went and saw his credit provider. I'm telling you this story. I know nothing about Robert. Okay, no problem. But based on his credit report, he's rung his lender and said, "I'm struggling, and I need to pay nothing for the next 3 months. I've lost my job." Okay. All right. So the lender says, "Okay, you don't have to pay anything." And here, what happens is, so for the next 3 months, he pays nothing, 0. He gets an A, that's the arrangement. And for April, May, and June, he has a tick. Yeah. Then he goes back to his credit provider in June and says, "I've got a job now. I can make payments of 1.5 per month for the next 5 or 6 months. I think it's going to be 6 months that he needs to pay to catch up on the payments that I've missed in those first 3 months when I made 0. So they say, "Okay, we'll agree to that." And that's also a temporary arrangement. And that's why he's an AAA and a tick, 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 tick. Yes. If after that period of time he keeps making payments and is
Yeah.
fully caught up, it will just go tick, tick, tick all the way along. Okay, so that's because he's dealt with his arrears as part of his temporary hardship arrangement. All right, go next slide, Edwina.
No problem.
So here, Karen is in the same situation.
Yeah.
But she does not go to her lender to work out what to do about the arrears, to ask for another temporary arrangement. So she gets the A's for the 3 months where she rings them up and says, look, I'm not doing well. I need this arrangement where I pay nothing for 3 months. She makes the payments, and then without speaking to the lender, she just decides to catch up on all the arrears. Can you see what happens to her repayment history information? It goes from 1 to tick, 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 because she's got an arrangement and she's paying in accordance with the arrangement. But the underlying debts are still there. So if you think about it, by July, she will be 6 payments behind because she'll have missed April, May, June. And she won't have made July's, but she's started to make payments, and then it slowly comes down as she keeps making those payments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so she's, instead of coming to an agreement, she's doing it herself, but it's still on as a credit process, it's still going to show that she's 6 behind. It will show gradually as she goes along.
Yeah.
So, but if she goes the other way, like the other person, it'd actually be more ticks and look better for her.
Well, it would. And we don't know, to be fair, Edwina, we don't know how that would affect. So if Karen then went to try and get another loan, okay, we don't know how a 6 would affect her ability to get a credit, but I'm sure it's going to be quite substantial.
Yeah.
So it's possibly better, it is better to have those A's and then a B if they do need it. But at least you just need to have in your mind you must deal with the arrears. And when you think about it, remember when the floods were on, and often lenders would go, oh yeah, just ring up and we'll give you 3 months off, which people really need. But unless they deal with the arrears, after that period of time, that's what's going to happen to them on their credit report.
Oh, yeah, and if they don't make contact after the 3 months to go ask for another, see if they can do another variation or whatever you call it. Yeah, okay.
So this, have I stuffed up my account dealing with arrears? No, not dealing with arrears. Waivers. Why
this is how the slide's going for me. Do you want me to go to the next?
No, you're right,
everybody. I'm just making sure I'm in the right spot. Back there?
Back here. Yes. Waivers. So this person is, and this often happens with financial counsellors, where they will go and speak to a credit provider and say this person can't pay, and by the time in September they're 6 payments behind, and then they ask for the person to be released either on the grounds of long-term hardship, and the lender agrees. That is noted as a permanent variation, and then after that you can see that those C's mean that the account has been closed. All right.
Okay.
And the R on that means that the you know, when I used I don't want to use when I'm speaking. But anyway, when you use, when there's an R on there, it means that the lender has not reported the repayment history information for that month, and it's recorded as an R. Often they did that when they didn't want to show that a person had an arrangement in place before the new laws came in. All right.
So that was more for the person, not the creditor.
Well, it's more, anyone else looking at the credit report will see that creditor did not report any information, repayment history information for those 3 months to the credit reporting body.
No problem.
Okay, backdating of, I don't know if that's the right slide.
We've jumped so many times. Here we go, backdating.
Yeah. Okay. Backdating of financial hardship information. You can ask that it's backdated. When it might, so if we went back to one, look, if you think about one of the previous slides where, let's go back to, let's go back just to the waivers one. Okay. So if you're here and this person asked for a hardship variation after July of 2022, and they then said that the decision about giving a hardship information wasn't variation or arrangement wasn't made until October, you could ask that that be backdated to July.
Okay.
But you have to be able to show that there was an unreasonable delay on the part of the lender. So 2 months is too long for them to make a decision. Or in some cases, if you can show that there were circumstances beyond your control, which meant that you couldn't ask for it earlier. So a couple of examples, it's not, there isn't anything legislated about what those things might be beyond your control, but domestic violence would certainly be something that I'd be raising there, or natural disasters. I hope that makes sense. We've got no questions anymore.
No.
We've completely flummoxed everybody, I think.
Yes.
So missing payments during an A arrangement. So if you miss a payment during one of these arrangements, it doesn't just keep going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It simply goes, it's either a tick or 1. But if you miss a payment, of course, the arrangement can be cancelled, and then you go back to the underlying. So if you, perhaps the lender will say, okay, it's okay, you didn't make one payment during the arrangement. So what it would have is tick A underneath if the arrangement was held to, 1, but with an A underneath. And then it might go back to whatever the underlying, if they cancel the arrangement, it would go back to whatever the underlying late payments were. All right. Okay. So if they were already 3 payments late when they started, it might go to a 5.
Yes, because they're already behind.
Or
and it's going to go back to the original.
Yes. V arrangements will simply list, so the varied arrangements will simply list repayment history information based on the varied contract. So if you have a V, which only requires you to make half payments for the rest of the contract, it will simply, from that month on, it'll be a tick as long as you make your half payments. And those Vs and As drop off after 12 months.
Cool.
Oh, this is very dense.
It is a lot of information.
I hope you're learning something anyway. It's good.
Oh, yeah.
So this was one of the areas where there was a lot of discussion about with the industry, because what we didn't want was the listing of these hardship arrangements to make it worse for victim survivors of domestic violence, because financial contracts are often a source of conflict within a relationship. And what people have to understand is that generally the credit reporting system does not record individually against both borrowers. It sort of records, if you're in a joint loan, it will record information against both borrowers. So if you and I were in a relationship and there was domestic violence, and I then said I wanted an arrangement, or you wanted an arrangement, and I saw this A on my credit report, I don't want it to be, there was a real feeling that we didn't want that to be a source of, making the situation worse. So both borrowers would generally be advised, if, and financial hardship arrangement is entered, but you need to let the lenders know then if you are victim survivors, so special arrangements can be made, which might mean that there's nothing listed on both credit reports, just to take that into account. But it is an obligation on the individual to actually say this.
Sorry, that question was more about if the video is going to be available, and it will be once we've gone through. It is getting recorded. So,
yes, good on you. Well, I hope it's being recorded. I've done my best. How many more minutes do we have? Planning. Well, no. No. So let's go on to the next slide. I just briefly wanted to just talk about buy now, pay later providers can list financial hardship information. Definitely not. Okay. They might possibly be able to, buy now, pay later products might possibly be able to be list repayment history information, but if there's a financial hardship arrangement, they won't be, because it's not credit to which the National Credit Code applies. Okay. Pros. Why would you go into a financial hardship arrangement? Well, these are the things that are to the benefit of consumers. One, it really shows on-time payment, even if the payments that you're making are zero. It only stays on there for 12 months. It can't be used to calculate a credit reporting body credit score. And like I said to you, that may be important to some people, very important. The access to that information is only available to certain lenders, and not all arrangements are caught, but most are. So even if you, Edwina, were 5 years ahead in your home loan, and you decided you wanted to go and reduce payments permanently because you still wanted to pay it out over the time, it would be noted as a V on your credit report that there'd been a variation of the contract. All right, but that would again drop off in 12 months' time. So there is a really complicated explanation as to when arrangements will be caught. Most will be. However, some people may not want a financial hardship arrangement recorded, and that might be you're overseas, you can't make the payment because you can't get to a bank. You ring up your bank and you say, I'm going to be late in my payment, just letting you know. I don't want anything recorded on my credit report as a financial hardship arrangement, because they think it's better in some ways. And they would not then record it as a financial hardship arrangement, but they would show a one missed payment, so a 1 on their credit report.
So that would have impacted on a lot of people who were overseas when COVID hit and they couldn't come back in, and they made the repayment stuff. Could that be seen as a natural?
Well, it might be something that where you can backdate your financial hardship arrangement. But yes, this is some of the things where you might get caught, where people probably didn't think that they would be caught. They're still caught up in this system. If they rang up and said, I can't get back, I can't make these payments because I can't access my bank account, they might then put in a financial hardship arrangement. Or these people might say, I don't want a financial hardship arrangement. I just want to let you know, and the payments will still be recorded as being missed. All right. So what are the cons? So if you're getting new credit, the lender will have access to that information. We don't know how that will affect your ability to get new lending. Certainly we would be arguing that the lender has to make more inquiries about whether you can afford the credit or not. But we don't know. We also don't know how it will affect financial hardship information we'll have on your internal scoring with another lender, because they can use that. And it applies to all arrangements, however made, and we've talked about that. And not sure what effect financial hardship information will have in collections. because it's just so early.
Yeah.
We're only on the 1st of July.
Yes.
Now, we'll just whip through the last few,
Yes.
one last slide. If you're not happy or have a dispute, it's first obtain a copy of your credit report, you seek legal advice, you make an internal dispute resolution complaint, either to the lender who's put the information on there or to the credit reporting body, and then make a complaint to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority if you can't resolve it internally. Because anyone that accesses credit reporting has to be a member of the Ombudsman, which is the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, which means it's a really good way. So our message is, don't go and pay for somebody to clean your credit report. Get some legal advice about whether it is possible to get the information off there that you're unhappy about. If it's not possible, there's no point in paying somebody a fortune to go and do that. If it is possible and they won't remove it, you've got the Ombudsman, which is free.
Okay.
All right. And the Ombudsman's website address is www.afca.org.au. Edwina, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. It's actually quite thorough what you've done today. I love the polls, I'll tell you. That was great fun. Does anyone else have any questions? Put it up on the question area, and we'll and Loretta will be happy to go through them.
I'm very happy to answer any questions, and if you've got any other questions that you might have, I would encourage whatever the contact details are on here to access those, and that they can be passed on to me.
Yeah. So as it says on there, you've got slides, but we've got our contact us information there with all the numbers that you can see on the slide. Cool. Our office locations, across Queensland that you can see on the slide. Yes. And also remember, you can register for our next webinar. And as I indicated in the question that was raised, this presentation will be available on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so register. I'm so disappointed. Where's all my questions? People are not well. Look, is it trying to wrap my head around credit report?
There you go.
Are there any good? What does statute bar debt mean?
Let's go to the first one. So trying to wrap my head around credit reporting generally. Are there any good resources?
So the Office of the Australian Privacy Commissioner has just put out some. I find their website really, really good for really good information about credit reporting generally. In fact, I've used some of their images on some of my other credit reporting webinars. We've done a previous credit reporting webinar that's more on general stuff.
So how is that again?
The Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. Just put in Privacy Commissioner and that should be fine. And the other thing is that I would also see what resources there are on the Financial Rights Legal Centre, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, and there is an industry-funded website called Credit Smart. But of course, with industry, it's not. It is slanted to being. It is slanted in that sense that they really support comprehensive credit reporting. So it's marketed as a very good thing, and there are some issues with credit reporting generally.
So Privacy Commission, Credit Smart, and what was the other one you said?
Australian Securities and Investment Commission.
So just put that,
And the Financial Rights Legal Centre might have something. Okay. And the other question, what does statute bar debt mean? It means something different in every state.
Okay.
It is, I'm pretty sure that we might have done a webinar on this anyway, but I'm happy to take that offline, Justin, and speak to you. Is it Justin
No,
that
Cheryl.
asked, Cheryl that asked that question?
Yeah.
Cheryl, I'm happy to take that offline and have you contact that number about questions, and I'll give you a call about that. Okay,
I think we've come to the end of it.
Edwina, thank you so much for being my co-presenter on this.
I don't know if I've done a great job, but I've enjoyed myself. And I'd like to thank the Auslan interpreters for their help today. And yeah, we're probably going to close off the session if we don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.